Greetings of peace, everyone. This is Bassem Shaban, once again, Director of the Peace Institute. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Faith and Society with our two prominent guests, Pastor Stanley Murray, representing the Christian community, and Imam Muhammad Musri, representing the Muslim community. So we continue our series on social issues that are impacting society, especially now with the pandemic still going on and raging around the world. Today, we wanted to really discuss a very important issue as well that's really gotten a lot of attention. Recently, the world leaders had a climate change conference through the United Nations, once again warning about the effects of not doing anything and keeping things as usual. And obviously we're talking about the impact of the environment and human behavior. So before we let our speakers talk and share their views, I wanted to start with just a quick resource that all of us can use that really helps us identify the problem for what it really is and not what people might assume. So everybody should be seeing the website on climate change through NASA. Do you guys see it, Imam, Pastor?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a great website that really clarifies a lot of the misinformation out there in the world. Obviously, everything is becoming political these days, including climate change. So this is a website that gives us tracking where we are today as human beings. I'm not going to go through all of the resources that it has, but we encourage our viewers to go through it and to read up and be well informed about the issue itself. A lot of us know the impact based on images of icebergs melting in the Arctic and so on, but it goes deeper than that, with obviously the temperature rising, carbon dioxide increasing, and many experts have said the world has gotten a good break in the last 2 years or close to 2 years with the pandemic, but we're still nowhere close enough to really make a dent into challenging the impact of climate change and human behavior. So many environmentalists have been raising the alarms for many years, ever since the 70s. That's where actually the event of Earth Day was established under the Nixon administration. And it's gone through all of these decades, but not much has been really changing because there are many issues in play here. And I don't want to keep talking. I want to leave our faith leaders to present their view from a faith perspective, as well as what they know about the environmental impact. So with that, Pastor, we'll start with you as always on what is your view about where we are headed as human beings in this crisis.
Well, I don't want to get too far left. Good evening to all of my friends and family out there. Honors to my good brother, Imam Muhammad. However, when you think about from the Bible standpoint, when it talked about this tree of knowledge that God asked Adam to delay in bothering, not to touch it, not to move from it, it definitely showed us why Eve got caught up in doing what she was doing, because once you begin to gain a notary to something, the big issue is you're responsible for what you know. And all this knowledge that we're gaining over the years through stuff we have continued to open our eyes about, we continue to do things with, we're now responsible for it. And so every time we have blasted through the ozone or done humongous attacks on endangered species of animals, or not taking care of our environment and the earth as we're supposed to, there's a consequence to it. Even in forgiveness, there's a consequence. And, you know, the world that we're living in now, people are more and more objective to consequences. They believe that, you know, there's always somebody else's fault. And so we're gonna just really now just be reaping what we're sowing. And I just truly believe that a lot of what's happening to us has already been given us far beyond now. We're just seeing it. The Bible talks about, the Lord talked about there will be wars and rumors of wars. And we confuse that with everyday battle, Vietnam, World War I, World War II. But what he's talking about, the war of the mind. And the war of the mind is now causing us to not be accountable to what we've done to the environment, but we've not done the education of it. When you go into the average school, they don't talk about global warming. They don't talk about what happens when we are endangering by killing off endangered animals like elephants and tigers and all those other things, because all of them, when God made the world, all of them had a purpose. Even though they weren't able to verbalize their purpose because they were animals, they all had a purpose. Anytime you take an apex predator out of an environment, something else has to become an apex predator that controls the manifestation of that area. So we're looking at all of these things that are happening around in the country today because of our greed. Let's be honest about it. I just truly believe that's what it really boils down to. A lot of it is just greed. The things that are being done, the things that are being seen, and it's not to better our communities, it's not to better our environments. It is the huge demand of what we call backdoor ambitions of what people want and desire. There's places overseas where people sit and eat exotic animals that are considered endangered. Why? Makes no sense to me. You know, there's things that are being done in the environment with our yards and our grass and the wheat. And if you notice, you can tell even by where our children now, the food is much, much different than when we grew up 40 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. The chicken's smaller. The fish doesn't really have the same feel or taste that it once had 20, 30, 40 years ago. So you're seeing those environmental changes are already happening before us. And now we're talking about shortages. So what happens when you have a shortage? Somebody starts cheating. Somebody starts changing things so that, because demand is, and that's how the commerce works, is what? Supply and demand. Well, if there's a supply, if there's no supply and there's a demand, what does that cause people to do on the earth? They begin to cheat. They begin to find back ways to do things. And so we all will suffer from this. I don't want to take too far, but this is a really a tough subject for me, because I'm seeing it every day. You can see it through emissions and everything else, that we got to start sitting down and figuring some things out, because we're really, as some would say, shortening our days. Well, we're helping those days be shorter.
Thank you. Imam?
Well, I'm very happy to join you again. And I want to start where the pastor started back in the beginning of the creation story, when God told the angels, we read in the Quran in chapter 2, verse 30, that God told the angels he's going to place successors, vicegerents on earth. And the response of the angels after they learn about this new creature, the human being, they said, why would you place on earth someone that will cause chaos and corruption and shed blood? And God said, I know what you do not know. And so we have, as human beings, from the beginning, had that potential to cause a lot of damage. And also in the Quran, in the chapter, the Romans, God said that corruption and chaos have become apparent on land and in the sea because of what the hands of men have earned. And so many people uh, say this global warming is not human activity. And as far as Islam, God said it is. It's absolutely squarely human activity that's causing all this corruption and chaos and damage, both in the seas as well as on dry land. The second part is the angels are saying we are responsible for this damage that we are causing to Earth because of our activities. And they were wondering why God would put us here and allow us to do this damage and to shed blood through war and through violence. Because we are a special creature that has the power to choose to be good like the angels or to be bad like the devil. So, and when God placed us in the garden, placed Adam and Eve in the garden, he gave them the choice and told them not to eat from this tree. And they went ahead and violated that request and they ate. And the consequence was they got out of the garden. We are living in a garden, in a beautiful, special planet. This earth, this blue, marble is unique as far as we can see. So far, NASA scientists haven't found anything like Earth. So far, it is unique. It's the only one. And it's not an option for us, what some like Elon Musk and others suggest that we start planning to go to Mars or elsewhere because we're giving up on Earth. We have to protect this planet because it's trust from God to all of us and to the future generations of human beings, animals, fish, everything else. So that's where faith stands on. And as Bassem said, that there is, over the last 50 years, there have been a lot of attempts to do something and not much has been done. It's because a lot of politicians are, reneging on all their promises. Just we heard this week a lot of talk from top leaders from around the world and promises, but many of us are skeptical that these promises would materialize, that they will get to net zero by 2030 or 2050 or 2060. And it actually requires all of us, every one of us on this earth, to do their part to prevent this doomsday scenario in the future. We can all see the impacts of climate change. We are here in Florida, we have seen how many storms, major storms have come by, the level of destruction. And we have seen this destruction visited on so many other states and other countries. And this is one form. The fires in the West Coast, the troubles. There's a long list of, sea rising in South Florida. All of that is direct effect from just what the website showed us, about 1.3 degrees Celsius, increase. Imagine if we double that, the intensity of these storms and the speed of how fast the ice would melt on the North Pole and South Pole is going to be unbelievable. So we are already in the middle of seeing the effects, and these effects will only get worse, drastically worse. So, and that's on nature. The impact on people, I will let you start with that. What's the impact on poor people, poor countries, people of color? people who don't have insurance for their homes, people who are living day to day, the prices of goods increasing because crops are getting destroyed. Animals are dying, so prices of basic food is increasing, and that's making it more difficult as housing becomes short. There's shortage in housing, and there's increase in basic food prices. The impact on the poor and the middle class is greater than the impact on the very rich, who their greed, as you said, is driving them to abuse nature, and they don't care. They don't look back.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, what would you say to someone who's saying, well, look at all this technology with solar paneling, wind turbines, there's ocean energy, all of these innovations that have been around for a long time, surely they should be able to support and, maybe reverse the impact of climate change. What do you guys say about that?
Well, I would go to say that they are a good Band-Aid. It's just not good over a gunshot wound. They have a purpose. They can help ease or delay, some would even say the inevitable, because the earth was made, and when God made it, he had already designed it in its perfection as to how it was supposed to go, long before solar panels, windmills, or anything else that we have come up with from the knowledge, still from God. However, my prayers are that we just stop individually and think about what we waste at home. Lights being left on, or water that we let run. You can go just about, I had a conversation with a homeless person one time, and he said, you can go just about anywhere in Orlando behind a restaurant and eat really good from the dumpster. He talked about how that restaurants throw away bundles and bags of food, bread. But because of our country as well, those restaurants aren't able to give the food away because the liabilities are being sued for giving the food away. So it's like an oxymoron. We have ways to help others, but then in the same sentence, we can't help others. Just earlier this week, not to get too far from the environment, but this call plays a part of what the mindsets of what we have going. I was at a very prominent place delivering some items, and a family was there asking where could they get food and items. And I turn around and said, right here. And they said, well, they said they couldn't help us. And so you go back to where the general knowledge and the general belief as believers, regardless of our religions, to help. Every religion still talks about love. And they all talk about a coming together. And so we have to find a way to come together and talk about some of these enlightenments. And we have to be very careful. Those of us who say we vote, when things are coming across the table, you need to read it. You need to really read what's being pushed across the political tables asking for your vote. Do your research for yourself. Don't just take the word of a commercial, because the commercial is steered from one branch or another. So you have to be very careful of that. So I would just start into just self-awareness, self-assurance, and then implementing it in your own communities and places of worship and neighborhoods.
I would say, about the innovations in solar, in wind, and all kinds of renewable energies, like you said, they're not new. Even 100 years ago, the technology to have electric cars was there, but corporations elected to go with gas engines because to them and with the oil companies, they will make more money than if you can get your own, you get your car and you can run on solar energy. There are many poor countries who in some ways are ahead of the United States in utilizing solar energy. And so the technology is there, the knowledge is there, as the pastor said, but the greed, the corporations, they don't want to give up, milking the American people and the world, giving them only limited options and say, you only have these types of cars, these types of machines that are energy hungry, and they can switch, they can pause their profits and focus on what needs to be done. They have the trillions of dollars to make the switch very quickly, but they choose not to because they want to milk the oil, the fossil fuel industry to the end and make us pay for it. The resistance at many levels, as the pastor said, when you vote, what the politicians, what Congress, is advancing of agenda, is it, pro-fossil fuel industries? As we saw, the previous president openly pulled out of the Paris Accords on climate change and, told the coal industry, we're gonna go back and open many new mines and so on. Until now, Australia is one of the biggest producers of coal and they're shipping it. And yeah, they say in the conference, we're going to get to net zero by 2060, but in reality, all that coal that they ship is not going to be on their balance sheet because it is on those who use it. And all the fires that swept Australia the last 2 years did not teach them that that's because of what they're doing. So there is a lack of will from the politicians and the business leaders, the corporations, to do the right thing because there is no fear of God in their hearts. All what they care about is making more money, more profits, and delaying this change. And honestly, they don't get affected. Where they live, their communities, they can afford, to be away in safer areas. But if you go to Louisiana, where hurricane after hurricane has caused tremendous damage, when you go to Bangladesh, or when you go to the deserts in Somalia and Kenya and Ethiopia and see cattle and people dying because there's no water, and when temperatures exceed 120 degrees in Canada, in British Columbia and in Oregon, that is not affecting the rich, it's affecting the working class, the poor people. And they all have to unite to make a better future for them and for their children and grandchildren.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but once again, great words of wisdom and awareness about a very long-term issue that we're going to face. We are already facing, as was said, but we will be facing for generations to come. So for our viewers, make sure that you're well informed, as the pastor mentioned. Do your own research so you do not get mesmerized by either corporate lobbies or political rhetoric, and make sure that you are living a lifestyle that is somewhat conserving the energy that's out there, even though it's plentiful, and that we work together as a human race to try to live a better life for the sake of our precious earth. So thank you for joining us. Look for some resources that we'll have on the posts and the channel. And we look forward to seeing you in another episode. So thank you, gentlemen, for once again, your words of wisdom.
Amen. Thank you for having us.